This is me, sitting on the toilet on August 28, 2018, taking an emotional bathroom break. You're probably thinking right now, Beth, are you serious? You're really gonna start off your TEDx talk with a photo of you on the toilet? Why? Well, a few years prior to taking that photo in November 2015, a friend invited me to an event in Manhattan where one of his films was going to screen. I was super excited about going. It had been 3 months since I had gone out for fun. Of course, I love going out and having fun, but I was teaching middle school full-time, running a business, and had gone back to school to study massage therapy. So as you can imagine, I was overworked, overwhelmed, overtired, overstressed, and underamused. Kind of like I feel a little bit right now after having said that very fast. That evening, I celebrated my friend's film accomplishment and made a few new connections. A few weeks after the event, one of the new connections reached out and asked if I would like to get together and discuss possibly collaborating on a project. So, being that I was all about my business, I said, okay, and made room in my schedule. Back then, it was a time when skinny jeans were trending, and a fun fact about me is I'm the lady who shows up wearing stilettos like most people show up wearing sneakers. So, I walked into that meeting looking and feeling like I deserved a Hollywood star. As it turns out, bouncing into that meeting feeling great about myself made an impression. And that night, after I got home, he called me up and asked if I'd like to go on a date. A date sounded really like a good way to take a break from all that work. So I said, okay, let's go out and do something fun. Have you ever been given very good advice, but you didn't take that very good advice? One night, I had a bad dream about him. And then, a couple days later, a good friend called me up and said she'd had a bad dream about me. And if I didn't get away from him now, I was going to have a very hard time getting away from him later. Another good friend just said, Beth, he's a bad idea. But the idea of fun was, of course, more appealing. The fun ended about 4 months later when I learned he was doing the horizontal tango with a whole lot of other women. Even though I ended the sexual part of our relationship, there were no hard feelings. So I invited him over to my apartment to pick up his belongings, and since it was evening, around dinner, said, why not just stay for dinner? Well, let me tell you, he wasted no time, and when he walked into my kitchen, he playfully slapped my behind. And that's when I knew he had badly misinterpreted a friendly invitation. One of the most challenging things to forgive myself for about that evening was that after the slap, I didn't defend myself. I didn't punch, kick, or shove, or even pinch him. We were in the kitchen, so there was a knife right there on the counter, but I couldn't move. My body shut down. This doesn't mean that as he was doing what it was, everything that he wanted to do, that I took things silently. I did tell him over and over, I do not want you, I do not want you, I do not want you. After about a minute or so, he did stop. He pulled out and he said, oh, you're serious? You really don't want it? I was completely humiliated. And I wanted to pretend that thing had not just happened that was so terrible in my very own kitchen. And I wanted to put as much distance between him, myself, and that night as fast as I possibly could. So I did what made the most sense at the time. I moved right along and began getting to know someone new. And that someone new was a disaster. In his defense, when he called me up a few months later and said he didn't want to be with me, the phone call actually wasn't much of a surprise because I didn't want to be with myself. I had rejected myself as a woman. So if instead he'd called me up and said, "Hey, Beth, you are the woman of my dreams and I'm madly in love with you," one, I would have never believed him. And two, at that point in my life, I wasn't in a place where I could have received his love. So what do you do when you feel so disgusting, you just wish you could separate yourself from parts of your body? And what do you do when, more than anything else, you want to love and be loved? But because you're so angry and you hate so many things about yourself, you do the exact opposite of everything you want to do, and you intentionally make yourself look unattractive in front of that person, and afterwards you curse yourself out and say, "Why did I do that stupid thing?" For 2 years, what I did was everything that had happened to me, I internalized it. And in my head, in my thoughts, over and over, I replayed the sad story about my sad, sad situation and all the very, very sad things that had happened. And I wished more than anything else I could be reborn as a woman who was proud of herself, who didn't have a past she was embarrassed by. And I wished I could feel sexy again. And I wished I could go on a date and not worry about being rejected from my past. And because there was so much anger and bitterness in my heart, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize that reflection. It was very clear that some things did need to change. But what those changes could be or should be, I had no idea. And then, in August of 2018, I felt led to begin photographing myself. One of my favorite parts about being a photographer is that I get to see how beautiful my clients look on the day of their photo shoot. And I especially love how excited and happy seeing their photos makes them. And so the idea of self-portraiture, it intrigued me. And I became curious, thinking possibly there was a chance I could reinvent myself in front of the camera. You may or may not know this, but in Greek, photography means drawing with light. In Greek, phos means light, and graphy means drawing or writing. And I've been drawing very dark, hateful stories about myself. But here is the powerful thing about light. Light always shines in darkness. Every time light shows up, darkness has to move aside. It has to step out of the way and make room for light to come in. Think about it. For example, when you come home late at night, most likely the first thing you do is turn on the lights. This way, you don't bump into or trip over something that will hurt you. Plus, turning on the lights makes you feel welcome in your home. And I didn't feel welcome in my home, in my body. So, on August 28th, 2018, I curiously stepped in front of the camera with the plan to take 10 self-portraits and see what drawing with lights could do for me. Having never been one to sugarcoat reality, since I felt like my life was in the toilet is where I sat for my very first self-portrait. And you know what? Taking that emotional dump, it was a relief. Yes, a huge relief. Why? Because for the first time, I was acknowledging where I was at without judging myself. Later that day, I went to the basement and photographed myself doing what else? Laundry. When we can no longer change a situation, we become challenged to change ourselves. This wise insight is by Austrian neurologist and psychologist Viktor Frankl. You see, for 2 years, I had been trying to force my situation to be different. I had been trying to force my circumstances to be something they could never be. But by sitting on that toilet and by doing the dirty laundry, I was saying, I am done trying to force things I cannot ever change. I'm going to take my power back and be the one who changes. I'd been disrespecting myself for a very long time. And so now, after these first 2 self-portraits, I was very curious. And I started wondering what might happen in life if instead I began honoring myself. So one morning, I grabbed my camera, took my favorite red lipstick, stepped in front of the mirror, put the lipstick on, and gave myself a smile. And you know what? Of course, I looked fabulous. But I also felt much lighter. Why? Because I was able to begin recognizing myself and see my beauty. And here's something that I challenge you with today. If it's been a long time for you, or if you've never looked in the mirror and given yourself a smile, step in front of the mirror and give yourself a big smile. Not only are you going to feel better, but you will feel more confident before you step out into the world. I also began using dance and movement in front of the camera as a way to reconnect with my body and sexuality. And the idea came from my childhood. I'm an only child, and growing up, Saturday afternoons, especially in the winter, were often very boring. One of my favorite entertainments was to take a box of my mom's safety pins, pull the top sheet off my bed, wrap it around me, and pin it into a fancy dress. Then I'd waltz my way into the living room, turn on the radio, and I would just dance. And it was my way as a little girl of imagining what it might feel like to be a grown-up woman. And so I made a playlist of my very favorite songs, went to my closet, pulled out some sexy lingerie and a few other items that I just felt really good wearing, and got in front of the camera and started dancing. Twerked, I salsa danced, I jammed out to country music. Yes, those dance moves were very eclectic. But here's the important part. I learned I could feel graceful in my body again. So why was self-portraiture such an important step in my healing? After all, photography changed nothing about the past, and photography didn't take away any of those bad memories. Perhaps you have heard of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to continue developing and form new neural connections when we challenge our brains with new experiences. And art is a neuroplastic activity our brains love. Why? Because art challenges us to see ourselves, others, and the world from different perspectives. You see, what I didn't realize was happening at the time, but every time I stepped in front of the camera and took a new self-portrait, I was creating a new experience of love. And with every new experience of love, I was creating new neural connections that were becoming stronger and stronger. And here's another very cool thing about photography. Photography is actually a form of meditation. And meditation automatically shifts our focus away from problems we have been ruminating on so that we can step into the present moment, live in the moment, and begin creating new emotional experiences that we want to live more of. Isn't that exciting? Here's what I hope you will remember most from our time together. Trauma has many voices. Trauma will speak to you with the voices of fear, anger, unforgiveness, bitterness, hatred, and even sometimes revenge. But every one of those traumatic voices those voices are liars. They will lie to you every single time about who you are and who others are. So how do you make those lying voices go quiet? You shine light on them. You see, I was never disgusting. I always was beautiful, valuable, worthy, lovable, and desirable. It's just the darkness of the trauma was hiding me from me. And it took becoming curious and stepping into the light of being able to see myself from a new perspective in order for my healing to really begin. So here's an idea for you. You too can begin your own photography journal. And it's much easier than you may think. If you have a camera, that's great. But if you don't, just use the camera on your cell phone. And then you can create a new photo album on your phone. And then all you need to do is start taking photos of yourself. Photograph yourself dancing, laughing, spending time with friends, writing a new book, starting a new business, starting a new job, or just enjoying a lovely moment in the park. I'm very excited for you. Excited for what you are going to discover about yourself as a woman or as a man when you begin uniting curiosity and art for healing. Thank you.